don't build yourself a prison.
Ooh, okay.
So when you're designing your business, when you're creating it, don't make it that you're the only person that can make that dish and be on the cook line 24/7, because it just doesn't work and it's not fulfilling. And so be able to teach people what you're doing.
Hello, friends, and welcome back to another edition of Coffee and Conversations. I'm your host, Jana Angel, and I am so excited to be right back here at Community Matters Cafe, our friends of the show who guide our neighbors and community members who are in active recovery in a very safe space right here in this live learning laboratory. Now, today I want to focus this in because first I want to ask you if you've ever wanted a couple of these things. If you've ever wanted your own reality show, if you've ever wanted to just quit your job and travel the world, you ever wanted to work with the love of your life? Or maybe you wanted to open up a food, beverage, restaurant concept. Maybe you've wanted all of the above. If any of those things have ever caught your eye, if any of those things have ever sparked a fire in you, this is the conversation you need to listen to. Today, I'm very excited to be joined by Jamie Brown and Jeff Tonidandel of the Tonidandel-Brown Restaurant Group. Guys, I am so excited to join you. And Jeff, shout out to you. Besides my dad, you're our first boy on the show.
Oh, wow.
Look at you go.
This is amazing.
Wow, Jeff, congratulations.
This is awesome.
Yeah, it's kind of been a girls group chat here, but so much of what we focus on is just brewing a really beautiful life and making bold choices. We started all of this because I wanted to be more of a risk taker. So I wanted to surround myself with risk takers. And I think you guys are the epitome of that. And I want to kick it off by just how all of this started. Jamie, you guys just up and quit that
Yes.
corporate life and traveled the world.
We sure did. It was about 2006. I guess it was 2006 when we got married. And then about a year later, we started having a lot of conversations about, we loved our corporate jobs. Jeff was working in NASCAR and I was working for Lance Snack Foods. And we just got to talking and said, I don't know what we're supposed to do, but we don't think it's this, even though we both had great jobs. Like, they were wonderful places to work. So we did kind of the crazy thing. This was before we had kids. We put all of our stuff in storage and we went to see the world. So we left, each of us had a backpack and then we had one roller bag to share. And that's it. Can you imagine traveling like that?
No, that's like my skincare is one bag. I'm just like, wait a minute. I just went full Drew Barrymore. I'm like, wait, no, buckle up. Tell me all about it.
The roller bag we took to back then is basically an iPhone, because the roller bag was books, a
Right.
video camera, a camera,
All the charging
a
equipment.
computer, chargers. So now that's all just an iPhone.
That's crazy.
Yes.
So that was all of your luggage.
That was the stuff, and then so our clothes were all in our backpacks, and yeah, it was pretty challenging. But a lot of people, we tell that story, but a little bit deeper into it, a lot of the impetus was because I wanted to write. I wanted to write a book, and I thought that if I could go out and see the world, that I would be able to do that. That I would have more
Yeah.
points of reference and more, wisdom, see more of the world, have
Yeah.
more, just more to add to it. And so he was on board with doing something different. So that's kind of what led us out to do that. And I think it's such an example of, you don't always know why, or if that first thing is what you're after, or if you're going to be led to it. Do you know what I mean?
No, I think that's a great point. Sometimes it's like you just have to take action and that path will appear. And it kind of sounds like that's what happened to you guys. So Jeff, when you guys were on this world tour, so to speak, did you have a plan in mind, or was it just like, we have packed and Jamie wants to write and let's go?
It was more like that. We had
Okay.
some friends that we wanted to visit to save money throughout the way. So a roommate of mine from business school was living in London, so we said, we'll start there. And we were staying at their house, not paying for a place, and cooking for ourselves, and still blowing our budget
Right.
at the time.
That's
right.
right.
So we
Sounds like me.
so we quickly traveled south, and one of Jamie's brothers was visiting Italy, so we decided to go visit them and start there. And then we just kind of kept staying ahead of, basically we went as far south as we could, and we
In
would
Italy.
stay in Italy, and then we would stay in, we were in Palermo, or in and we would stay there, and they'd say, "Hey, tour season starts next week, so you got to go." So then
Gotta go.
then we'd go north one town, and then they'd say, "Tour season starts next week," and so we just kept moving north, and just the adventure began.
So when you finally decided to come back, what made you say, okay, I discovered, I learned, or we're just out of money and we got to go work again? Like, what was the catalyst for coming back and taking a next step?
It was a few things. So we had done kind of like a tour around Europe, staying in hostels with our backpacks, and we were not looking so good by the end of it, I'd say, pretty ragged by the end. But we decided, I have 2 adopted siblings from South Korea, so we decided to go visit them. And so
They were in Korea at the time.
they were in Korea at the time, so we went over and visited them, and also took a trip to Japan. And while we were over there, I got a call from my mom who said that my grandmother's health had really deteriorated. And I was close with my grandmother. I had lived in of course, grown up with her down the street a few miles, and then had talked with her. I would call her from payphones along our journey because that's what we had. So I would call her along the way, and I heard that she, was probably not going to make it through a fall and so forth that she had had. So we kind of looked at each other and we were like, all right, we've been gone for 8 months now. Let's head back home. So we went back to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and my grandmother died the very next day. And I know maybe it's a little mystical, but I know she waited because she also asked that night, she said, "Did everybody make it home?" And my parents lied because there were 2 kids that hadn't. My 2 Korean brothers hadn't made it home yet, but they lied and said, "Everybody's made it home." And then she died the next day. I know she was just waiting to make sure everybody could say their goodbyes, and then she was able to let go. And so we started then, in Pittsburgh, and trying to get started from there was really harrowing because we went on that trip to find ourselves and figure out what we were going to do. And it was so embarrassing because we were more lost than we had ever been.
I mean, but I think that's so beautiful because clearly you've built an incredible business, media empire, everything. So you found yourself at some point, but when you were sitting there and obviously coming back to this heartache, like you're newlyweds that had taken off to Europe, and like you said, you went to go find yourself, and you're like, all we have found is like the max on our credit card. So
we filled out a
where do
lot
you
of
go from
goal
there?
sheets. Like, these are our goals. These are the things we care about. And over again. We had a lot of blank ones too. But yeah, we kept trying to, put those ideas down and decide what we wanted to do with our lives.
And I do think that's a big part of it is like literally put pen to paper. Sometimes I think that is, it's so overrated. You can think all you want, and that's great about, what you want to do and see these visions. And I'm a big believer in manifesting and writing down what you want. I have watched it over and over again in my life. I didn't always believe that, but I've come to witness that in my life, and it is so powerful. But taking that pen to paper and saying, especially as Jeff did when we came back, like, I want to go into hospitality. Now, we didn't know what that looked like.
Right.
That's what he really wanted to do.
Yeah.
That kept coming up over and over again, those words and curating and those kind of things.
What were those? You mentioned curating. What were some of the words that came to you?
Well, I think I'm very passionate about food, and I love cooking at the time, but that never was the reason that we opened a restaurant. It was more caring about people and this feeling of wanting to be a part of a neighborhood too. I think Noda kind of became that for us, where we could become part of the neighborhood and start building the neighborhood up from the ground up. And because it was in a little bit of disrepair at the time, kind of during the recession back then. So it was nice to kind of jump in and help create wonderful evenings for people, and that was really the impetus for us kind of doing what we did.
I love that because I was kind of wondering how you went from, okay, getting off that plane, having this happen to you, impact you, and then saying like, okay, now we want to go and serve others, like not just serve them food, but serve them a good time, serve them memories, serve as a space. And when they look back and remember, oh, I love when we all got together at this restaurant, we had a proposal here. That's what I think restaurants like yours are so special, because so many things can happen inside those walls, but you guys also are so detail oriented. And I love you guys, but I feel like you really love to do things the hard way. They'll be like, you know what, that building's super cute. What if we move it down the road on wheels? I mean, so walk me through a couple of the ways that, maybe you've done things differently than a lot of restaurateurs.
I think we like you can say we like to do it the hard way, but I think we like to think big, and we're not afraid of challenges.
That's better. He's better at branding than I am. Right. That's why he's got restaurants.
And I think just the doing something that other people are scared to do. I think we solve problems and figure it out and make it work. It all has to pencil out
right.
Economically, but at the end of the day, we like to do those things, and we also like, I think we like making things, however that's done, but we like making the tables. We loved designing over the pandemic. We had the opportunity to design all the plateware for Supperland.
Oh, wow.
And so we worked with a designer, and it was something I think we had a really good time together doing of working with that designer and kind of coming up with all the plates. And so it's not easy, but definitely enjoyable.
Well, and those are all words that I feel like you don't really hear if you think about people who are working together as a couple. This is another thing that I think fascinates me, impresses me, that I love about you both, is that you're a married couple. You both have a wonderful relationship, and you own multiple businesses together. Like I think I would have fallen off the earth after 8 months. Like I think it's incredible. But when it looks at your relationship, what have you learned about each other building these businesses together, and how do you do it?
I think you lost a bunch of people on the intro when you said, and work with the love of your life. I think that's where usually it falls off. But we'll let Jamie answer this one.
Well, I just think, people will look at it. Everybody always sees the shiny stuff, but we have to work through things every single day, every minute of the day, having to do with our children, with our relationship, with our business. So yes, we've found ways, but don't think that it's easy. Do you know what I mean?
I don't think it's easy. That's what I'm asking. I'm like, what are the
I don't think you think, but I want to make sure people know that it's not like it's all shiny. Like every relationship, and everything you're building has so many challenges. And I think one of the things I've learned as I've gotten older, I like to say more seasoned.
Yes.
Is just to be more adaptable. I'm not a particularly flexible person. I'm pretty controlling about a lot of things. I know this about myself. I'm very controlling with food at our house and ingredients and things like that. I am a little bit of a wretched gatekeeper. Do you know what I mean? But I think learning to adapt and understand he works very differently from me, and I approach every day with a list. And
same.
I don't know, do you have a list?
I have a list.
I never see this list. I like to have it out in
a Post-it note hates to see me coming, because I'm like, I got to write it down.
Girl, I'm right with you. Yes, but I mean, you can get so much more done in a day.
And the best part is crossing it off. My boss Shay and I, she'll get excited and we'll cross things off my list together, because it's the best part.
Is that implying I'm not getting anything done in the day?
Yes.
I think you're missing out on the satisfying part.
Yeah,
crisscrossing.
It is, and oftentimes you do the thing and then you write it down to cross it off later.
Yes. Yes. You want credit for it.
Yeah, you want credit for it. But yes, I think it's, understanding our working styles, and maybe what he needs is so different from what I need, and trying to fill in the gaps, and each of us managing and leading the other as well,
Yeah. So it sounds like Jamie and I have a very similar working style. I like to say, if anyone ever saw Cadet Kelly, I am Christy Carlson Romano's character, and I'm drill sergeant, but with a low bun. That's me. But tell me about your working style and how that works with Jamie's.
He's so low key. I'll just go ahead and say it.
I think one of my superpowers is just being very relaxed. I don't think you can use the word low key anymore. Yeah, no. By the way, it doesn't mean what you think it means.
Yeah, it's not. Right, low key. It's not the word.
That the kids these days they've
6, 7.
They've changed.
Yeah,
they've changed that one. But yes, I am very chill. I'm very relaxed, but I like to solve problems. So when somebody comes to me with a huge problem or something that we have, I dive in and I figure it out and I research it, and I will not stop until we figure out how to get around that.
And you're also very chill about things until he's not. And then there are certain things that really can irk him. Consistency with food is something that it's a very
I
difficult
have a few
task in
triggers.
general, but that's a very difficult thing for him to deal with. Like when we've dialed a recipe in, and making sure that it's consistent each time. He gets very irritated if people don't follow a recipe. And he's blown up sometimes about things that can be very frustrating.
I do. I get frustrated when I bring the chefs together a lot of times on very complicated things, and I say, so we all agree that this is what it's supposed to taste like, and this is what it's supposed to look like, and this is what it's supposed to be. And then 2 weeks later, I taste it, and I'm like, is that what we talked about 2 weeks ago? So I do have I have a little bit of a rough
But
time
it's
there.
good. I think that's where you need to have flexibility, but you need to have lines in the sand, or you're not putting out a quality product one day after the next.
Right. Well, because I mean, if I fall in love with a dish and I go on a Tuesday, I come back and bring all my friends on a Friday, and it's not the same, like that, then that's jeopardizing that
Yes.
whole restaurant experience. I
And
mean,
it's
and
not
that's
to
just the
be
reality.
just like McDonald's, but there's a reason why McDonald's does well is
Yeah.
because they're so consistent.
Yeah.
And we need to make sure our recipes, while a little more complicated than McDonald's,
Yeah.
they need to be consistent.
Yeah. I
Even
think
though you have different people working on the dish every day.
Yeah, and I think something that you guys always talk about when I've spoken to you in other segments is you always come back to your team. So like you said, like that constant communication with your team, building a team around you, and I'm sure people, like you said, they love the shiny. They look at you and they're like, they do it all, and you guys are very upfront about, no, we don't. We hire strategically, we recruit strategically. So advice for other people who are building a business. And I think it can be really easy to say like, oh, I have a friend that's good at this, a friend that's good at this. And my brothers, we can kind of just hire in terms of proximity. But what advice would you give people who are starting a business, who are crafting a team, and they really want to make it an all-star group?
One of my favorite ones is something that my dad passed along to me, and that is, don't build yourself a prison.
Ooh, okay.
So when you're designing your business, when you're creating it, don't make it that you're the only person that can make that dish and be on the cook line 24/7, because it just doesn't work, and it's not fulfilling. And so be able to teach people what you're doing. And I think one of the things we've learned is, as soon as we free ourselves up from doing a big task, I remember when when we hired another person in marketing and PR, and she was able to start offloading these things, we got so much better as a company. We started growing. Her ideas on, things we hadn't even done yet just were skyrocketing. So that ability to kind of give up something so that you can move on to do bigger and better things is kind of a big key for us.
Yeah, as I think so much of it is, you might start a new business and it's so exciting for you at that moment in time. We wanted to open a restaurant, but and so we opened up Crepe Cellar Kitchen and Pub. It was 2009. Jeff had to work a lot of shifts, and you learn that if you do create, some sort of a prison, no matter what that looks like, you're not giving yourself a chance to evolve.
Right.
And humans love to evolve. We're here to grow and to get better at different things or explore different things, and making sure that you're in a spot to be able to do that. And yes, it takes risk, and yes, it takes a lot of uncertainty, but by passing off to someone else and betting on yourself, you're going to find something else. And I always whisper to myself, the stone will appear. It will appear, and I don't know what it is sometimes, when you do that dramatic, like, pass off of your own job to someone else, you have to sit and wait. And maybe it was 3 or 4 months or so, but then we started getting opportunities with television things. And I was like, oh, this is so fun. I love this, to be able to grow into something new and learn something new,
Yeah, exactly. Like you said, like kind of freeing your mind up to not just be so task oriented, because that can kind of shut down your creative side when you're just having to tick, 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 check off everything every day. So it sounds like that really got to blossom. And you mentioned your television opportunity. So I think that's a perfect segue. I mentioned earlier, if you've ever wanted to have your own reality show. Now, I know everyone's worried that this included them throwing plates at each other and smashing glasses. But the reality of this show was that you were able to tell your story in a really unique way. And a lot of times when we see a reality type format, there's a villain somewhere. There's somebody who's nasty. There's somebody who's mean. There's somebody we all have to like make memes about. But really here it was more time and challenges and pressure versus a person. So how did you guys go about crafting the show where we still have that intensity of story arcs and that interest without villainizing any one person?
Do you want to talk on that?
You got it. Go for it.
I think one of the beautiful things about the Fork and Hammer program is that it's on PBS, and that is all about education, that edutainment type word where you're weaving together lessons learned, whether in life or business or food and drink, whatever it might be. And that has been an incredible piece to see come together because we're working with Susie Films is the actual producer of it, and they don't want the people drama either, you know, and I think that's why this worked for us. We had a couple of opportunities come our way in the past, for instance, like one with HBO Max or some with more Food Network type stuff that felt like they were going to get a little bit more into competition or drama. And for us, it just like, we love our team so much. Like a lot of these people we've been working with for 10, 12, some 15 years. And so they're very dear to us and very precious to us. And also our relationship is precious and our relationship with our children is precious. And I guess we wanted to be able to do this, but also be able to say no to other things. And so I love that this has come together this way. And I think the most beautiful thing, too, is that we can really highlight the talents of our team. We're not the ones cooking. We're not the ones making the food and sourcing the food and creating these drinks. We've got this incredible team of people who are doing that. And for us to be able to showcase what our team can do is such an honor.
I was going to say, literally nationally recognized team members. I mean, we all saw Michelin coming out recently, I mean, which is super exciting. But when you do get a second to step back and look at that and now see it, you know, you've been on local television, you're here with us now, you have your own podcast and now this reality show. So getting to share that story, see your names pop up on these national awards lists and things like that. When you step back even now with so much more ahead of you to go, how are you feeling at this point at where your brand is?
Well, I think we have a long way to go because we're just launching, so it's not really real to us. Our podcast has just a few listeners besides our moms, and
hey, Grand Jan is my biggest fan. I do this for Grand Jan. Hi, Mom. We love you.
There we go.
And Angel Pop.
And but I think for us, really, it's a joy to get to share our story and how we do things and. Show that the restaurant business is really, really dynamic and it's changing, and it's not just about food. Now, luckily, we have 6 different concepts, so we get to share a lot of different food things, which I think helps make it interesting. But it's about design and it's about hospitality and business and entrepreneurship and taking risks, and there's so many facets to it that I think are really neat. And PBS has been awesome, and Susie Films has been awesome that we can be very cerebral and share these things, but yet they still manage to cut it together and keep it exciting and move the story along.
I mean, it sounds exciting, and I've done lots of TV. That's all been more news-based or pre-production based. But what was it like just filming a reality show? What was the behind the scenes looking like?
For the most part, it's been pretty easy, other than, I'll tell you, my most challenging thing is like hair and makeup. All the time, like for any time there's filming, I'm often like a bun girl, like I've gone to the gym, I'm just like pulling it together. Do you know what I mean? And so that piece of like having to look together is challenging. But and I thought it was going to be more challenging with our team, but I think because they are so proud of what they do and they work so hard, it's been something they've just kind of like stepped very easily into.
Yeah.
And I feel so lucky because, some people are camera shy and that is A-okay, but a lot of them are super proud to show their best.
I love
so, and I think I think Suzy Films has made it very easy for us to work with them, and everything's planned in advance. Some people have asked me like, "Oh, do you just have cameras around you all the time?"
Right.
I think the difference between this versus maybe a traditional reality show is it's a little bit more of a docu-series.
Yes.
They're documenting our journey along as we work on certain projects. So usually I will send to the producer, these are some things that I think are interesting you might find
Yeah.
to weave into upcoming episodes. So we've actually started filming season 2.
Yeah.
And so, he's starting to pick up on some different things that we're working on. And it tells the story as opposed to being like just caught up in the reality of things.
Right. And I think that's what's so great is like just like your culinary experiences, even this media experience you've curated to really be on brand for you. Now, earlier you mentioned the multiple concepts that you have. So Jeff, can you walk us through each of those? And I'd love to just dive into how you created identities for each one, because they are all very different. Like I think they have your consistency, they have your brand pillars at the core. They're always going to have amazing food and cocktails, but they all have a different personality of their own.
I think when you really closely examine our spaces and our places, you really find that you can follow our journey as you go. So you can see where when we start doing Haberdish, which is our fried chicken and craft cocktail place, that's when Colleen really started getting good at and just was on the upswing of learning to make craft cocktails and was showcasing them at Crepe Cellar at the time. And we really wanted to have a spot, for her. And then Jamie and I were coming to the realization that, wow, we've been in Charlotte for almost 20 years at that point. And so we were laying roots down here. So we wanted to really explore Charlotte cuisine and come up with what is this cuisine, what's going on at the crossroads of this Indian trading post town. And so you really see those touches and influences on Haberdish. And then, as you move along to Everondolo, you see an 8-10 year journey of getting citizenship for our kids. So they have dual citizenship in Italy, and kind of that exploration of finding my family in my hometown in Italy and going through that process. So you can kind of, see those, see those things. And then even raining donuts, you see fun trips to the beach that we had, having a little donut shop that makes fresh donuts for people on the boardwalk. And I think what you find is single spot we have has a little bit of influence of what's going on in our lives, and then it also has a real sense of place where we're trying to fit the community. So Supperland, I think I had my midlife crisis of buying a 14-foot fire grill and spending an insane amount of money on that piece of the build out. But then we were trying to also come up with something where we cook everything really cleanly there. So most everything's cooked in olive oil to start, and then we finish it with maybe a Wagyu butter or different touches. But we have the ability to cook cleanly and keep allergens out of that. And that was kind of following Jamie switching her diet and staying away from grains and a lot of other things. And then Growlers. Growlers, you can see that was me. I'm the city's first certified Cicerone, which is a sommelier of beer. And this is, from long ago where I started really getting into craft beer and embracing that. And so we opened a craft beer bar. So that, that where that comes from. And then Lelia Hall, I think you see our travels. We love the beach. We love Mexico. We love the Caribbean. We've had a lot of wonderful trips there. So you see those kind of touches and influences in there, and also kind of creating a little bit more fresh, healthier options with all the seafood and ceviches and those kind of things thrown throughout. So did I hit everything?
You did. You
was
did
a
an
lot,
excellent.
yeah.
There's a lot of words for him. Usually he's in listening mode if I'm anywhere within 10 feet.
It's like, no, listen, you did great. You were locked in, and like you said, you shared so much about how each one is just part of your journey. And Jamie, if you're comfortable, he mentioned you switching up your diet and staying away from grains, and it's something that you shared with me before the show, but that you stick to a pretty clean paleo diet, but you really felt like that led you to be a more empathetic restaurateur because you wanted to make your menu and your restaurant so much more accessible to people trying to eat healthy, to be mindful of their bodies. So how did that work your way into its menu?
Yeah, for sure. So it was really in my early 30s that I started having some issues with my body, but I didn't, and it was mostly joint pain. And I didn't realize or connect any dots until I was 39 when my body really started falling apart. I had had 3 children, and I was diagnosed with early onset arthritis, and I had severe ulceration problems and so many other symptoms from like pains in my back, like super sharp pains, to numbness in my limbs, to, skin conditions, things like that, to, dry eye and, so many minor things, heart palpitations. And anyway, but the worst symptom of all was my mental health. I began to tank, and I mean, I was, at first it was just like a mild depression, like you'd expect, of course, from any woman who's, turning 40 and has 3 kids,
Right.
all that. And then, that depression transformed into anxiety and then high anxiety. I was diagnosed with a generalized anxiety disorder and a panic disorder because I was having panic attacks every single day. And I had no idea where this was coming from or anything. And it was a terribly difficult time. But I after suffering for about a year with those symptoms, of course I was going to therapy and yoga and trying to do meditation, and they just prescribe you medicine. I shot out of bed at like 2 a.m. It was in August, and I had the weirdest thought, and it was about rabies. Okay, now bear with me for a second.
Oh,
I thought about
buckle up.
rabies
Listen,
because I
rabies.
was like, why in the world would a person, and this is quite personal, but why would a person be battling suicidal thoughts on a regular basis and having such high anxiety if there wasn't something else at play?
Right.
And I had never heard of the gut-brain connection. But that night at 2 a.m., I started doing research about the gut microbiome and how it impacts our mental health and what I could be doing. The next day, I began a new journey, and I didn't figure things out for several weeks on what type of elimination diet would work for me, but I ended up dropping myself on an elimination diet, and it's strange to say, but it's 7 years later, and I still stick very close to that. It's very clean eating. I don't eat any grains. I don't eat gluten. I can handle now. I know I can handle a little bit of a little dairy, like in the form of butter, or I can handle a little bit of fruit sugars, honey, or things like that.
Right.
But I know this body vessel really well, and I'm super sensitive to a lot of what's called FODMAP foods,
Okay.
which are certain, even vegetables, certain types of vegetables that can create a certain environment in your gut that can impact your mental health. And so after doing a lot of research with functional medicine doctors, and I went to the Cleveland Clinic, I am so blessed because I know what to do, and I know what to do every day. And even though it's been difficult to, eat a super confined diet, I feel nothing but blessed because it truly has made me better at being a restaurant owner, at being a wife, at being a mother, at taking care of my body and connecting dots to know, hey, if I sense, ADD type symptoms coming on or anxiety symptoms coming on, I can be forgiving of myself and also track it back to what I ate 6 to 8 hours before.
Right.
And I know because I eat so cleanly, generally, I know what triggers it. And so for me, it's been nothing but a blessing, even though it felt like it was everything got taken away.
Right. I mean, and it sounds like you said in the moment, maybe it was everything got taken away once you realized that connection, but you were able to give it all back to yourself. And I just think that reminds us to be our own advocate. No matter how many, I think, doctors and professionals you can surround yourself with that have amazing insight, your body best, you've been there the longest. And like you said, this wasn't something you started to experience until later in your 30s. So Jeff, as somebody who was her partner, how were you able to step in and be there? Because I feel like that would be challenging for you because you want that person to be there, but you don't necessarily know what to ask for. And how did you guys navigate that together?
I think from my end, it was just to be supportive of somebody that wants to try something, pretty life altering to change what you eat to that extent, and to be supportive of it, to help cook some of those things to help supply that stuff at home. And I think our kids eat a lot that same way, and we just all try to be as supportive as we can be. Obviously, I end up, since I kind of have to run the culinary for 6 different restaurants with a lot of glutinous things around, I end up eating a pretty diverse diet when we do tastings and things like that. But I am happy to, go the vegetable and meat route at home. And it was pretty easy for me to immediately become supportive, though, because I saw such a change in the way, like, her outlook of the world and just the way she's feeling. And it really has been incredible transformation of even our relationship. So
I remember him asking me once, it was early summer, and I asked him, I said, Jeff, like, truly, like, tell me something to look forward to. I can't think of anything to look forward to. And he goes, well, there's a lot of things, like taco night. I'm excited for taco night. And I had to go up and look at myself in the mirror and say, oh my gosh, I remember being excited for things like taco night, but I don't know what that feels like anymore. And I wanted to be excited about finding a beautiful lip gloss color. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just the tiny
Just like a little
things.
treat, something.
But when you're depressed and when you're in that state, you just people say, just be grateful, be thankful, be happy, look at all you have. And it's like when you're sick, you can't see that because you don't have the right chemicals, that you don't have the right makeup to let that happen. And so now, like, I chuckle whenever we have taco night and we have taco night probably twice a week now. And literally, I get happy for taco night. And it looks different than it used to. I use my Siete grain-free tortilla shells, and it's very simple ingredients, but it's delicious, and I get happy about taco night.
Yeah. So you got to find your joy again, which I absolutely love. Like you said, even I'm like, can you hold her hand? Because I'm like, I just want to be like, Jamie. Because I hate that joy felt so far from you, because I know you as just joyful Jamie Brown, and we get to see you guys everywhere. And like you said, I know it's not always shiny, but anytime I've seen you, you're excited, you're happy, you're so kind and warm to everybody. So I can't imagine that not being the Jamie that was in front of me.
Yeah.
When you look back at that moment, and maybe we know someone in our lives who's going through that, and maybe we don't know what that is, or they haven't found out exactly what that is, but how can we be a better friend to that person? If I was Janet to your Jamie at that time, like, what was there anything I could have done for you to help you?
That's such a good question, because I think a lot of times people who are struggling with mental health so badly, you cave in on yourself and you don't realize it, but you don't want to burden people.
Right.
I've taken some suicide prevention training since then, because I know what it's like to feel those feelings. And they offer them through an organization called Giving Kitchen that helps food service workers. So a number of people on our team have taken that training as well, so that we know what to look for. And the biggest thing that those places suggest is to help the individual get referred to go somewhere else, get help, find a therapist. That stuff is all very helpful. Now, I didn't have the radical change until I switched my diet. But trust me, things like learning meditation techniques and, going to therapy and, becoming more introspective and learning breath work, that's stuff I use now. Like when I just have mild things that I'm like, oh, this feels a little bit like a lot, But, those things, that tool belt was invaluable to me. It's just wasn't the thing that took me over the edge. But I would suggest to anybody to try an elimination diet. Talk with your doctor or talk with a functional medicine practitioner about, if there's something there that might be able to help you in the long term too.
Because I think sometimes like you said, you can cave in on yourself and you can feel like it's just you. Like you are broken, like you aren't thinking right, and it can be very self-inflicting. But I would just, I've seen my friends in spaces like that, and it's just, you feel so helpless because I'm a natural fixer. I'm like, what can I do? Do you want me to dance for you? Do you want me to play music? What can I do to make you happy? And it's really not about that. But like you said, it's finding the root of the problem, just being supportive of that. Obviously, we're here at Community Matters Cafe, and they guide our neighbors who are in a safe and sober lifestyle. So it's almost like being supportive of somebody who's got a strict diet, like be supporting of their sobriety, not somebody going like it's just one drink, or like, well, it's just a piece of toast or something like that. Just being
Right.
that supportive person where it's like, no, hey, like we'll have water on the rocks, or like we're going to have just veggies and chicken. So, being supportive in that social environment.
Yes, and then I definitely found that in Jeff. That was a really hard time. We weren't doing well at all then, because it's hard to have a relationship if you're not mentally well, and he's worried about me. And so finding those answers. And I remember him talking to I have a twin sister. He had talked to my twin sister, and he was like, look, I don't think this is going to work. I don't think this diet thing is really what's going to make a difference, but we're desperate, and she's just going to try it, and then we're going to see if it works. And I was so grateful that, literally the first week I switched my diet, I've never had another panic attack. It was so clear.
Wow.
I don't struggle with anxiety. I don't have panic attacks or anything. And I think a lot, it's autoimmune related. If you have a lot of autoimmunes in your family, that's something, that we think about mental health as being this other thing, but it's actually your whole body, and it's just could be just a symptom of other health problems.
I think that's incredible. So Jeff, in terms of going through this with Jamie, how do you feel like that's changed you as the lead of your culinary team, as an owner, as a boss, really? Because I'm sure you've kind of gotten to use this for both of you when you're working with your team. If they're going through something, do you feel like you're more able to walk through that with them?
I think we do a really good job of just giving people options and thinking through where somebody might be coming from when they walk in the door. Even at Raining Donuts, it's a 82 square foot walk-up donut shop. We don't have a lot of space. We don't have the ability to have a lot of SKUs, but we run one of Jamie's sister's mixes, an Eat Gangster mix, and we make a little tiny bundt cake that is grain-free, gluten-free, vegetarian, and has, basically that if you came up there with your kids, you have something that you can share. Or if if your kids have some dietary restrictions, you can do that. And then, at every one of our places, we have an extensive allergen menu. So you can just ask for the allergen menu when you walk in, and we try to be meticulous about every item on there and think through how can we make this vegan, how can we make it vegetarian, how can we best serve our customers. So.
And I feel like our chefs have gotten so good at this. Like this cheesecake that we brought for you, it is actually, we have 3 desserts on our Alleluia Hall menu that are all gluten-free. That's one of them. A lot of cheesecakes are set up with flour in it to help hold it together, but we use cornstarch. So for those who can have cornstarch and cheesecake and all that kind of stuff, it's just at least another gluten-free option. I think Jeff has done an incredible job leading our chefs, but our chefs are now so mindful of it themselves. They keep ingredients to a minimum. If they're making a sauce, they keep it to, 3 or 4 ingredients instead of having like, oh, this sauce you can get from a store and then mix it with this and another. Then suddenly you don't even know what's in your sauce anymore.
Yeah.
Instead of using whole ingredients,
Yeah. I love the fact that you guys are so mindful. I recently went to my best friend's wedding. She got married in Italy, but she is also hyper allergic to gluten. And it's not just like, I don't eat gluten. It's like, no, this will change the trajectory of my life. And so she had cards that were in Italian and English, and she would have to hand them out to people.
Yeah.
I mean, and imagine getting, your dream wedding in Italy, and you have to be scared and mindful of the pasta. So I remember just being worried about her anytime when she was near food, because I was like, what is that? What is that? Gluten, get away from my bread. Just, but I would love I love the fact that I can take her to these restaurants, and I know she can still enjoy a beautiful culinary experience, that she can be safe and not have to stress and worry, because it can be a danger.
Oh, absolutely. And we're always mindful to say every one of our kitchens has gluten in it. And gluten's a tricky one, because if you're super sensitive, it still could be an issue. So, but our chefs do a great job of keeping things separate. But if someone is celiac, we always say, please let your server know. We will go to extra lengths to make sure that you're taken care of.
I love that. Now, I want to round out our conversation because I feel like the one baby we haven't talked about yet is like your actual baby. We've talked about your restaurants, we've talked about your show, we've talked about you guys being together, but you also have an amazing family and you guys are really in this together. So you mentioned earlier, that your kids play sports, and so you guys are not only full-time business owners, you're full-time parents, and you're very involved. So what does a schedule look like for you? I hate to ask that. Like, how do you balance it all? How do you do it all? But I think it's always a question for someone like me who, I mean, if I like walk my dogs, brush my teeth, and remember to pay my power bill, I feel like I'm really doing something in life. And then I look at people with much more complex lives like you guys, and I'm like ever be able to adult on this level?
You would probably laugh about this, but on my list every day, I write kids to and from school. And I know it sounds so lame because
That's why I don't have a list.
Of course you have to get your kids to and from school, but like that's one of the most important things we can do is to make sure our kids get there, they've been fed, they have their lunch, and they get home. But yes, it's a lot, but we try to make sure they have chores that they need to do. They are very responsible for their homework. We try to instill that, self-discipline and self-awareness that they have control over their grades and not be like harping and on top of them. And I know every kid's different. Some people have kids that have a harder time with that, but thankfully they've been pretty self-motivated to do that piece.
We have a lot of flexibility kind of creating our schedule where we haven't built ourselves a prison, so we have times when we try to make sure that we're free. So we kind of both do the morning school drop-off and try to get our workouts in, and then the workday kind of starts. But we also try to get home around when school time ends and all the kids are kind of descending back to the house and be there, even if it's for just a few minutes to check in and make sure that we're all set kind of going forward for the night.
Yeah, I like to cook just about every night. I'll say like 5 nights a week. And his schedule is a lot harder and more intense work-wise. I do a lot of my work from my couch. So when 3 o'clock comes, my office shifts to the couch so I can be there when the kids come home.
Yeah.
And just, be there,
I love that. And something you mentioned earlier, I'm going to ask a parenting question, because I think it's challenging and I've been surrounded by elementary school kids all week and they have so many different personalities. But how do you start from a very young age, being there, being loving and supportive without kind of that coddling and compromise? Like you said, we want your kids to be independent and feel like they're making good choices on their own. So how did you guys come up with that kind of parenting plan together?
I have one parenting thing that is not something you can like totally advertise out there because people will maybe like come and sue me for this. But I took the approach of not locking cabinets and not blocking off stairs. And this sounds weird because maybe it's not safe, but I took that approach and would walk the child, each one of them, over to the place, and I would show them where the chemicals are, and I would say, do not touch this. Or with the stairs, do not go up these stairs or down these stairs without mommy or daddy, or do not open these cabinets.
Right.
Do not touch the outlet,
Right.
And a lot of times they would get into tears and they would be crying because I'm like, this is a no, don't do this.
Right.
And I would actually tell them. But what happened from there was they never touched the thing.
Right.
They never did. And it's because it wasn't like I had said no. They decided, I mean, yes, I said no.
Right.
But then they're deciding it's not because it's blocked off.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? So then
There's
I
no
feel
mystery
like,
behind here. I know that this is dangerous and this will hurt me.
Yes,
So there's no
I
mystery here.
Don't know how this is going to go in the high school years. Like really, like not sure about that. But to this point, like I think that trust and treating them like they're just a missized adult, to have respect and care for them, that's not my person that, I'm in charge of.
Right.
No, this is a human being I'm just nurturing right now. And they're about to be an adult and I'm just getting to care for them right now. Do you know what I mean? But to treat them like an adult and treat them with trust and respect and have conversations with them as opposed to like just get in the corner. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Type of stuff and try to explain to them. Yeah.
I think we've set pretty high expectations for them. And then they've also, with the pandemic and us having pretty fluid lives, have seen how hard that we work and how focused we are, and seeing, I think we try to be pretty good role models of what we do. and I think all that has had a pretty good impact on them.
Now, listen, again, the verdict's still out. Our kids are
Yeah.
not
Right.
out of the house yet. So. TBD.
They
But
can't drive yet, so they're still yes. So
Listen, I think you guys are doing an incredible job. Like I said, just mentioning how you guys, make it a point to spend time together, make it a point to kind of care for each facet and aspect of your life. I did have to ask about the dual citizenship. Was that something that you guys prioritized for your family? Because that's something that's really unique.
it just came about. We knew that my great grandfather came here in 1902, 1903, and we knew we had the opportunity to do it. We actually had a very short window because we're from the northern part of Italy that was actually part of Austria, and so the window was closing on it. And we ended up getting our paperwork in just a few weeks before the
Wow.
deadline, which was pretty cool. And then it was just a waiting game after that, and trying to get a decision made by the Italian
by
government.
the time the 10 years passed, though, we had 3 children. We started when we just had Jeff, and I had Isabella. But then as time has gone, now all 3 kids have that as well.
Yeah,
Love that. So something exciting to look forward to. How about looking forward to other things for you guys, for you as a couple, for you as a brand? I want to hear more about your podcast so we can share that with people. But what are you guys most excited for next?
I'm excited about a number of things, but I also want to say that I feel kind of like I'm at a point where I'm not sure where it's all going. And I think that's maybe part of the journey for a lot of people too, is that sometimes you're very sure and you have those steps planned out. And then other times it's like you kind of need to sit back and see. I'm excited about, we're working on the Leaper Wyatt renovation there to put in a new restaurant concept. And then we're also working on a commissary space to support our kitchens across the places. But, I don't know where the show is going to lead. I don't know where our podcast is going to lead or where these restaurants will lead, but trying to just stay open to what that looks like.
And
Do you have a plan, Jeff?
I don't have a to-do list, so I'm just kind of chilling and enjoying the whole thing. I've really enjoyed, I don't know how, I mean, you have a podcast, but I've really enjoyed the podcast and getting to talk to people and really, kind of dig in and find out some things about them. I think we've had some interesting topics, and we've been having fun with that. And of course, we get to do all this stuff together, so it is.
Yeah. Do you find like the longer format, is that like enjoyable?
I love it, and it's fun because I love to listen to other podcasts, especially ones that my friends host. Because even though I can't see them all the time, I feel like I'm still in on the group chat. I feel like I'm still in on their conversations. And for me, so much of what we wanted to do with this is just that you can learn so much from anyone, like whether it's a celebrity that's worldwide known, or whether it's a voice that kind of hasn't been heard yet. So many people have different experiences in so many different realms. And I think just even here, we've had entrepreneurs, we had, Broadway stars, like we've had actors, like, we've had you guys. It's just been a real gamut. And so I always say I'm really nosy and also nostalgic. So I love stories.
That's what you do. You story tell. I love that. And it's such a different format. And the way that you have had to be so nimble is so similar to what we've had to do. Our business has changed so much. So is yours.
Yeah. But I love it for you guys because you followed what you were passionate about. And I think, like you and I talked before the show, like it financially does have to make sense at some point. But I would much rather build my palace with my kind of ADD interests that all involve yapping and storytelling and probably a dog somewhere nearby than creating a prison of security just because I knew what was next.
And I think the most exciting thing for me right now is just we're working this week on, we're going to present to our team next week of the whole Leaper Wyatt brand and menu and
We have a lot of work to
structure. And it's been a lot of work, and all that's finally coming
Can you
together.
give us a little preview
but
of that?
No, absolutely not.
Even though this is airing in a couple weeks?
Well, it's a really interesting building because it's 4 stories.
Mm-hmm.
So we moved 2 stories, but it's sitting on top of a foundation, and then we're building a solarium on top. And one of the tricky parts is we're having to create a food experience that can be run across 3 floors. And so it's going to look different from one floor to the next.
Are there elevators, or are we literally running them upstairs?
We do have an elevator, but we need to minimize that because the guests are going to have to use the elevators too. The floors are very tall.
And God forbid the elevator doesn't work one night.
Right.
Yeah.
You know what I
I'm just wondering if I can come and like just serve for a while to get in shape for summer, because this sounds like a great lunch.
Yeah.
Bikini season.
Yeah, it will be. And each floor is only 1,500 square feet. So as soon as you
wow.
put in an elevator, a set of stairs, and a bathroom on each floor, we're kind of restricted. And I don't know if you've noticed this, but everything's getting more expensive. So the build out, the construction for a restaurant is extremely expensive right now. And so there's a lot of pressure on us to create enough revenue to pay for all that
Right.
construction. So we're having to be pretty creative and thoughtful about each floor, trying to maximize each floor, trying to maximize the number of seats and how we can move food and move people throughout the space. So it's been really complex. It's been an awesome puzzle. We've had a lot of fun with it. So hopefully the team likes it and I can't wait to see really what the team ends up adding to it. Is going to be the fun part.
We take a unique approach. A lot of times it's very collaborative with our chefs. So we'll present, hey, this is the idea. And then we know certain chefs are really good at different things. Some are great with vegetables, some are great with meats, some are great with pastas or breads, and kind of work together to create it, as opposed to building the entire menu around one chef creating all the dishes.
I love that.
So I think it's fun for our team, and it also really brings out the best in everybody and allows us to create better dishes across the entire menu.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's incredible. So before I let you go, we always ask all of our guests this one question. Obviously, we're talking about coffee and conversations, brewing a really beautiful life, making bold choices. So I want to ask you, what fills your cup at the end of the day?
Ooh. I mean, coffee really is like...
Says the man holding a
coffee-
tea.
Yeah, well, that's just because I had a cup and a half of coffee already today. But no, I like the little joys throughout the day, like having a wonderful, nice cup of coffee. And just those little things kind of get me through the day.
I love that. Little pockets.
I think, on the word little, I think the idea for me is like that every single day I'm building on the bigger dream. And if I put my head on my pillow at the end of the night and I've done these tiny things.
You mean like cross stuff off your to-do list?
Yes,
which I don't
crossing
have.
stuff off my list.
I love it.
But if I do these little tiny things throughout the day that are building towards those larger things, then I feel so fulfilled by the end of the day. Even if it's just picking my kids up from school and getting them home and having a nourishing dinner, like that is all part of that bigger piece.
Yeah, I love that. Well, thank you guys so much for sharing all of this with us and letting us be a really special part of your story. I appreciate you guys so much.
Thank you so
That
much
was
for
fun.
having
Thank you.
us. Thank
And
you.
remember, we always want to share all of that local love. And you can do that by making a reservation. That's right. Walking by a donut window. By the way, that was one of my first foods back in Charlotte, was at that donut window. So thank you guys for that. That's going to wrap it up here for us at Community Matters Cafe for another great conversation here on WBTV Originals, Coffee and Conversations. Now go out, fill up your cup, and light your fire. And you get the cheesecake. Keep rolling. We'll just keep eating.
So that is our Basque style cheesecake.
Oh
we
my-
make it at Leiluya Hall. It is from Basque country
Do you see
in
how the
northern
sides
Spain.
are gooping out?
Yes.
Like it's just supposed to
I've
be.
been to País Basque. I've had Basque cheesecake, and this is amazing.
Yes,
Yeah.
so you want it to have that nice crust on top, a little bit burned, and then you want it to be very gooey on the inside. It took us a number of tries to get there, but that's it.
But you nailed it. You guys also know that I'm like half Golden Girl, so bringing me a cheesecake is perfect.
I love that. Good. I'm so glad.
This is great. You can solve any problem over a cheesecake. That's my theory. Certified Golden Girls accuracy.
I love that.